Welcome to Dealmaker Catalyst, and I'm your host, Jason Seward, and today we have Major Hillard. Major Hillard is a real estate investor and founder of MH Estates, a vertically integrated manufactured housing investment firm based in Clearwater, Florida. Starting with just $1,500, he built a $50 million plus portfolio and has owned and managed over 1,026 lots, sold 523 homes, and been involved in more than 70 million in combined real estate transactions. He specializes in acquiring and transforming underperforming communities into high-performing, recession-resistant assets, helping investors generate passive income, protect their downside, and build lasting generational wealth. Major, welcome to Dealmaker Catalyst.
What's up, Jason? Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, man, that's quite an impressive. There's so much I know that goes into that brief bio beyond what it says, and people hear that it's like, man, this dude's crushing it, got a lot going on. But I think what we're gonna do, Major, is we'll cover all that, and I'm gonna kind of turn it over to you in a minute to kind of just go through what all that really looks like right now. But I want to get it back to the start because I believe the bulk of our audience is at that starting point, right? Just trying to figure out how to connect dots and get to the next step. And maybe they can't envision 50 plus million in portfolio, but they can envision, I got to figure out how to take some action and get the ball rolling. I think with your history and then the evolution from there, I think you can be a good resource for that. So I'm excited to dive into it.
All right, man. Yeah, I appreciate it. So, yeah, it's all about mindset, but we'll go back to where it all began because it didn't happen overnight, right? People see the social media posts, or they go up to the guy in a rented Lamborghini and a nice suit, say, "Hey, man, what do you do for a living?" "Oh, I sell a course. Go buy my course." You're not going to make your money buying courses or buying this and that, but you can't find truth. So, yeah, I started out. We'll go real back. Father was into residential real estate. He knew Jim real well, knew all the guys, the group from Richmond. But growing up, and I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate in the residential market, it was always something going on. So the only time I really got to spend with him was on a job site. So I remember going at 6, 7 years old, going to homes and ripping up carpet, putting up drywall, installing new seal plates, windows, side, you name it, I've done it. And so I did all that. And then at the same time, you get the maintenance on top of that. So leaving in the middle of family dinner, this is before cell phones, right? Phone always ringing all night, leaving at all of a sudden, not making sporting events. And I remember one night, turning point for me was I had to crawl underneath a crawl space and use a blowtorch to heat up a copper pipe because it had frozen so it wouldn't bust. And that was like 2 o'clock in the morning in the middle of February. So, and I remember seeing that and going, man, and seeing the stress of my father. He's always, there's got to be a better way. I got to do something else, man. It's not for me. I don't want this life. So then I watched a movie, and this all started from a movie. Was the Wall Street movie with Michael Douglas, and he talked about a limousine with Buddy Fox that he bought this apartment complex and sold it and made 100 million. This and that. It was the best thing he's ever done. And I said, that's it, commercial. I got to get into commercial, right? Because all I ever knew was residential. So fast forward, getting to college, and it was 2008 during a recession. I decided to be a commercial broker. Probably the worst time in history ever to do that, but it didn't matter. So started doing that, and I started managing. I found a brokerage that would actually take me in. It took 2 weeks of me calling, banging on their door to let me in. They finally let me give me a shot, and I ended up managing. I'm 24 or 23 at this time, and I was managing a 126 unit Section 8 complex. And so learn real quick. Again, commercial's great, but there's got to be a better way because that was sucked. So then I graduated. I got my license while I was playing football and this and that. And then it was a tough time. I couldn't make it. So I actually had to move back, live in my parents' house. And I was working as a security guard at multiple nightclubs in Richmond, Virginia every night. During the day, I was trying to lease up commercial buildings. And then in the afternoon, I was coaching high school football or track at the time. So I was doing anything I could to make any cash. And super tough. No one was hiring at the time. and ended up one night at my parents' house. And the worst thing you could do is stay there. You feel like a total failure, right? You spend all this money, you go out, you can't do it, you're struggling. But I was a terrible employee. Everywhere I went, I got fired. I'm the kind of guy, if you tell me to do something, I'll do it the other way, just as out of spite. So I found this book in my father's attic. It was in a box covered, like when you in the movies where you take the book out and you hold it up, you go, and the dust goes everywhere. Yeah, that was it. And it was a book called Deals on Wheels by Lonnie Scruggs. And it was, I opened it up because I wasn't a big reader at the time. You go through, no one talks about it. You go through school and in college, and they force you to read all the stuff you don't want to read. It's just like running. I hated running because of football. They always make you go. And then you enjoy it later when you do it, when you actually do it for yourself. So I opened it up and I was like, oh, it's written on a typewriter, some pictures in here. I can do it. It's only 150 pages, right? So I read the book and it talked about flipping mobile homes and that he was buying homes for $1,000. And I said, there's no freaking way, because this thing was published in like early 90s, late 80s. That's 2012 at the time. And I said, there's no freaking way. I said, let me go try this anyway. I had $1,500 in my name out of the years of doing all that. I remember doing a tax return, and my father saw it, and he just thought, just total failure, right? Only have $1,500 on the W-2, and that's all I had. So I went and read the book, and that very next week went and go looking at mobile homes in a couple of parks in the area, and found a good deal. And I coerced the guy in the brokerage I was working for to go half in with me. So I put 1,500 in, and he put 4,500 in, and we bought this house for 6K, and I ended up selling it within like 2 weeks on installment sale, and we got all our money back on the down payment. And so I took my cash and went and bought another home from the same park. And then same thing, within 2, 3 weeks, sold that, bought another home. And within 3 months, I went from no income and 3 jobs, living in my parents' house, to where I had a little over $3,000 a month in cash flow. And I could finally quit 2 of my 3 jobs, right? And then get out of my parents' house and start living in a townhouse that I had gotten. So it was a big step up. But I realized after about my sixth home or so, about 4 or 5 months into it, I said, why am I doing 1 or 2 homes at a time? Why not do them all and just buy the whole daggone park? And that's what led me into mobile home parks. So the biggest reason why during college, and I forgot to say this, I went into the brokerage because I wanted to learn about commercial real estate. And there's courses and this and that, but I believe in real world experience and mentorship. Well, there wasn't anything that was helping me at the time. So I realized if I go in a broker, then I'll understand how to evaluate deals, how to finance deals, how to manage these deals. And I learned a ton from that. I took the CCIM course. I recommend anybody interested in commercial real estate to take the course, even virtually. You'll learn all about different forecasting, different models, uh, different formulas, what have you, to help anyone. So I did that. But yeah, so I worked my way out, and I said, I want to buy a park now. So after about 10 months of searching, so about a year in, I found this little park, residential, listed by a residential agent. And if you want to find a good deal, look for commercial properties listed by residential agents because they don't know what they're doing. And negotiated a deal because I had about built up about 20,000 at this time, and negotiated a deal. It's a little 12-unit park, 12 mobile homes with one stick-built home in Hampton, Virginia, in the middle of a drug war zone. So it was, perfect prime pickings, right? And it didn't bother me because I had done Section 8 and all this other stuff. It didn't bother me too much. So train tracks, everything, right? So negotiated a deal, and they accepted. Well, here's the funny part: it was listed at 750. All right, 750,000. Again, I have 20K to my name. I just moved out of my parents' house, and I offered them, I think, 180,000. knowing if my real rule is, man, if you don't feel like you get punched in the stomach to hand them that offer, it's too high, right? Usually. Now you can't be crazy about it. You got to justify it, right? So I'd done my numbers. I showed the forecasting and all that, sent it over. So I sent them my offer at 180. They're at 750, and they came down to 400. I said, all right, I got a chance here for them to drop almost in half. So we ended up settling at 220.
Wow.
And they would finance it. And I didn't have any cash. I'm trying to do everything. So I talked to my attorney, a couple attorneys. I swung for fences. I said, all right, well, we'll do it on a 40. We'll do 20,000 down. We'll do 5% interest, and we'll put it on a 40-year amortization table. And then we'll also put substitution of collateral so I could sell it and keep that note for later at a different park. And they accepted it. So I was able to buy that park and turn that thing around, get rents up very quickly, and then the cash flowed really well on that. And I was able to buy my first house. And that's how I met my wife and this and that. And at that time, and it just kept scaling. So I went to another one, a 55 unit, and 185 to 125, and just kept going and going and going.
All right. So I'm going to unpack some of that here. So that, first of all, I mean, God, it's such a common denominator when I sit down and talk to all these entrepreneurs, especially in the real estate space. So many folks take action out of desperation. Just
Oh, yeah.
you're sitting there back home, your dad's looking at you, you feel like he thinks he's disappointed in you and whatnot, 3 jobs, and you just keep trying. You dust off the deals on wheels, read the book, and it sparks something. You go out, but the key is, the common denominator is desperation and then taking action. And you took some action, and
Yeah.
that led to the snowball effect. And I guess, like you mentioned, this deal in Hampton that you negotiated all the way down from 750 to 220, you still had to bring 20,000 to the table. Did you have a mentor at that time to kind of coach you through all the creative structure of this financing and how to set it up?
No, that's a good point. No, at the time, and this still happens today, but not as much. But at the time, this is 2012, 2013, 14. Mobile home parks. I was a black sheep of the real estate community. Every meetup, everything I went to, they thought I was a slumlord dealing with the disposable, horrible people, this and that, and it's just not the truth. And so no, there wasn't anything out there. Now there was one little course from Mobile Home University, did pretty well, uh, and then the books, a couple books, that was it. It's a very niche within a niche of a niche to do what I was doing. Not only am I buying something that's a niche, mobile home parks, but I was buying the ugly ones that no one else wanted that needed a lot of work. And the reason for this was I realized when I was a broker, everything, and it's true, and doesn't matter what real estate, it all comes down to financing, right? And so there's a couple of linchpins in mobile home park financing. That's with vacancy, infill, deferred maintenance, and park-owned homes. So I purposefully wanted to become a specialist at park-owned homes, vacancy, infill, deferred maintenance, infrastructure, because that's where I could get the really good deals at. And I knew if I sucked it up and learned trial by fire, that I could have my pickings on deals in the future because it's very hard to do. And that's what we do today. In fact, my nickname in the industry is a janitor because all I do is clean up.
Yeah.
And these sellers, and it's really helping the sellers too because they're stuck in a corner. They can't sell it because it's not really financeable. So, and I'll get you to another story here in a minute, tell you how creative I was. When you don't have money, you got to be creative. You can only be stupid if you have tons of cash. Okay. And even then, you won't have a lot of cash after a while, but you got to be super creative. So, seeing that kind of deal, the seller installment sale or seller financing model through my father when I was young, and then doing it myself, the installment sale on the homes, I figured out some creative ways to, everything's negotiable, right? So my favorite game is Monopoly. My family hate my kids and daughter and wife hate playing with me. They all gang up with it to try to beat me, and I still end up beating them because I try to negotiate everything, and we even write it down and notarize it and stuff. Uh,
I love it.
but but uh, but yeah, you have to be creative. So and then reading other books, deal structures, but really, financing is key. If you can hold and understand finance and have a way out for your buyer, that's really the key. And then to work with the why of the seller, you can really negotiate some awesome deals.
Yeah, and I think when it comes, and this is true in any asset class, but that is the financing piece and the creativity piece of it. Any asset class, I would argue, is one of the most important things to master because a lot of folks like the stuff just in just what little bit of time you've kind of laid out what you did, it's going over most people's heads because they're like, oh, that seems too complex. If you understand it and learn it, it's just like anything else. It's a formula, it's a playbook, but you got to know what you can and can't do within the guidelines of the laws and regulations and stuff like that. And if you understand that and master it, it's like a whole new world opening up to you. And you obviously found that at a very early age.
Well, like you said, when your back's against the wall, you got to figure out a way. Yeah. Right? So, uh, also goes to show that before I bought that park, I ended up buying a 20-unit apartment complex in downtown Richmond. And this was while I was at my parents' house. Okay. I had nothing after, and this was when I was flipping those homes. But what happened is the seller, uh, it was a listing. It went off market because it didn't sell. It was a hard property in a not the greatest area, but I knew by checking out the development plans, the expansion plans of the city of Richmond, I knew it'd be sitting in a really, really good spot within a few years, right? So I went and talked to her and said, hey, I'd like to buy this property. What's going on with it? And come to find out, she had terminally ill cancer and she wanted to offload these properties, these Section 8 properties, so her daughter would not be burdened with the management and this and that with it. And so she really needed to sell it. And so we negotiated a deal where I bought it for 900,000. Again, I had no money to my name, right? But I negotiated a deal that I would buy it for 900,000, but I would assume, meaning take over her loan. So I wouldn't need to make a new loan because there's no way in heck I would qualify. And all she wanted was $200,000. So I went and found a hard money lender, did a loan. We got it for 200,000, but I had to go. The loan was with VHDA, which is the Virginia Housing Development Authority. So I'm 27, fresh out of school, no experience, and I had to prove to the state that I was qualified enough to assume this $700,000 loan to buy this apartment complex. And so she was motivated, and the state was motivated because they realized their borrower had terminally ill cancer, would pass away, and they would have an asset they don't want to deal with. Right. So both of them had nothing to lose. And so I was able to buy this $1 million complex with no money and at 27 with no experience because I found out the motivation and was able to negotiate a deal. So I was able to buy that. And there was another one I did, the second park I did. That one was even crazier. I actually traded a clam boat for a $2 million park, you know?
I got to hear more.
So yeah, it's wild. So this guy, this seller, and these owners in this industry, mobile home park industry, they're all different, right? Just like any seller's different, but they're usually a little kookier, right? This guy, I found it was a park again listed by a residential agent. Didn't know what he was doing. He had this park. It was worth about $2 million, and I got it under contract for 1.7. And what I said is, hey man, why are you selling this park? Because he was really, really not wanting to sign a contract. And I was figuring out why. What's his why? And I figured out his why. I said, why do you want to sell the park? Because I can't tell you, you're going to laugh at me. I said, I'm not going to laugh at you. We're sitting at a boardroom with like a 20-foot long table. Why they had such a long table, I have no idea. It had a little residential brokerage, but we're sitting there. I've been working this guy for 4 months, and I finally went down to go see him. So why are you selling? Why? He goes, you know, I said, no, I'm not gonna laugh at you. Yeah, it's good. I have dreams too, man, and I want to own a farm, do all this stuff. He goes, all right. He goes, well, I'm gonna sell this park so I can go buy a clam boat and go dredge the Chesapeake for clams because I hear you can make $1 million in a weekend. And I was so shocked, right? And I'm trying not to laugh, but I was, I shouldn't laugh anyway. I shouldn't say that, but I was so shocked. I looked at him. I said, "Oh yeah, man, you could be like the deadliest catch, man. We get some cameras and be all over Discovery TV. That's awesome. In fact, I know a guy with a clam boat. I bet I could trade. I bet I could buy his boat and trade you for the park if you want." He goes, "Oh yeah, yeah, let's do it." And he signed. So when we left, I Googled, where the heck do you buy a clam boat? so, so I found a decent one for like $1.5 million. And I said, and I got a contract for it. And he went to go look at it. He said, I don't like it. And so I said, well, why don't we do this? How about you finance $500,000? Again, I have no money. I've already spent everything I have. How about you finance $550,000, and then I'll pay you monthly around $6,000 a month, and then that will pay for your loan to buy the clam boat you want, and then you're still going to get $1.2 million or $1.3 million at closing. Oh wow, that's a great idea. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He loved it, ate it up. So that was the only way I could close. So I went in knowing that I had to get him to do that or find someone else. So he ended up holding a note for $550K, and I found a DSCR lender that didn't really care. They just look at the numbers, right? But here's the problem. I had to qualify for the mortgage. And how I qualified is I had to have enough liquidity. I had assets, but I didn't have liquidity. And the assets were leveraged pretty well because I'm just starting out, right? So I had to have liquidity. I had to have $500,000 liquidity. So what I did is I called a couple hard money lenders and some guys in New areas, and I found one. His name was Tom. I love that guy. He's helped me. Oh man, he's such a helpful guy. But he was on a cruise ship on one of these investor cruises. Said, hey man, I need help. I need a show, 500K. Can you lend me 500K and I'll pay you? I won't touch it. It'll go straight to the attorney, this and that. I negotiated later with him and brought his note down in half. So I was all in on that property for $1.35 million, and I sold it within 36 months for 3.3. So I made $2 million on that property.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any money in it and no experience. And you had to find a way.
Well,
And so, and one big takeaway, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, you're
Big
good.
takeaway I'd say with all these deals, and there's been way bigger ones since then, is that don't be scared of the deal, right? My motto was at the time, when the deal's good enough, when the deal's really good, the money will find you. And with it being $1 million over that six figure and higher, it freaks people out. It's just an extra comma and a zero. That's all it really is. And I remember buying my first condo at an auction. My dad and I went half on it. I had $5,000 at the time, and that was every penny I had. And I remember walking up to the auction, and I had my hand in my pocket the whole time because I was scared it was going to fly out my pocket because that was everything I had. And when I pulled it out, it was all wet and sweaty because I was so damn nervous buying that little thing. But once you get going, man, it's just an extra zero and a comma, and you get acclimated to it. But don't be afraid of the deal. If you get a really good deal, the money will find you if you can split it up and show those forecast models and really that the investors, whoever you speak with, they believe you. Is really what it all comes down to.
Yeah, and I think the example you just gave is good. Is a good illustration of not just like creating a good deal, but you said you spent 4 months with this guy trying to figure out a way to buy this thing. And where you eventually broke through is scheduling a in-person meeting and digging until he told you why. And you got him to say, I'm embarrassed to tell you, you'll laugh at me. and he finally told you the clam boat story, which is funny. Like that is a funny answer.
You don't expect that.
Right.
You don't expect that at all.
He for 4 months, he wasn't thinking about sharing that with you, but you were persistent and trying to figure out and connect the dots. And then he gave you what you were looking for, and then you helped him solve a problem. Now, I got a question for that story.
Sure.
Did he get the clam boat, and did he go on to make $1 million a weekend?
No. I'll tell you this. This is he actually works for an asphalt paving company now,
Okay.
laying pavement.
Yeah.
But he was just a character guy, man. He was probably 5'2" and big old Santa Claus belly, leathery skin, white hair, and he wore about 8 gold chains like Mr. T.
I love
He
it.
was just a character. But he he just he he spent it all. I mean, he everybody's got their own thing. That's what he did.
Yeah. But I mean, like it was a situation where like you didn't take advantage of him and by
No,
no
no.
means. You dug enough to see at that moment that he had a dream. It might have been a weird dream and far-fetched, but you saw that and you helped him find a path to get that, and in return you ended up with more real estate. And like that's just that shuck down to the cob. That's what it is. You figured out what his needs and whys are, and I would imagine many deals on behind that have been the same way. Maybe not as funny as that one, but where you were persistent enough to uncover needs, and then where most people might say, God, I don't know how to solve this puzzle, you start figuring out how to solve the puzzle. And clearly that's a superpower to get you to where you are now. So my question kind of on that is like you put down, and we'll get into some questions I sent you beforehand, but you put one of your books, and it's one of my favorite books, is Never Split the Difference. Um and it sounds like I mean, you probably, that book didn't come out till you were well on your way into all this, but it sounds like a lot of the principles he talks about in that book you bring to your real estate deals and negotiations as far as being creative and getting into the psychology of it. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. I would say too, though, you can't be nervous about yourself. You got to be confident with yourself, right?
Mhm.
So when I was in commercial brokerage in college starting out, super nervous. And what they forced me to do, because we're trying to sell industrial real estate when everything's getting shut down in 2008, 2009. So they made me print out all these, like I had over 1,500 of these postcards and brochures, and I had to go to every industrial building and hand out these cards, otherwise they wouldn't pay me. So I went and knocked on over 1,500 doors, walking in, talking to these people, nervous as hell. After about 600, I was really good at it, right? So it's just repetition and forcing your way through.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, you know, whatever path people are considering jumping into or taking action on, that's at a fundamental level reps is all it takes. I mean, it's anything you've ever done in life doesn't it didn't come natural to you other than maybe
Yeah.
like you didn't all the way back to learning how to walk. You had to practice and you fall down a lot until it gets comfortable and now everybody walks around. And I think
Right.
that is true in everything in the sense of like it's all hard at first. It's all intimidating. Everybody's nervous and it's the separator or the folks that just continues to understand that this is going to be hard. I'm going to get better. I'm going to keep pushing through until I get better. And then they blow up to own 50 plus $1 million of real estate. So, I mean, that's
Yeah.
where it is. So how did your journey take you down to Clearwater?
Uh, Taxes, people, and weather, very in that order. In that order.
Yeah.
But no, I had so here's another thing. So it's all about your why, right? And I don't know if you've heard the story about the wine and dog. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Maybe.
Uh,
I'm not sure.
so there's this guy that goes to his corner store, country store, every day, and every time he goes up there on the porch, there's this dog that's always whining. This old dog just whining and yipping. He walks in the store, and after about his third time, he goes to the owner and he goes, "Hey, why is that dog whining all the time?" He goes, "Oh, he's laying on a stuck-up nail on the porch." And he goes, well, why didn't he move? He goes, and the owner stated, it just doesn't hurt. I guess it doesn't hurt enough. You don't want to move yet. So when I got backed into that corner, there's no other option, man. And I know your other podcast is one of my favorite quotes is burn the ships with Cortez. So everything I looked at was there was no other way out. And so when there's a problem or when I come across anything, you've got to make it work. And there's never a failure. Everybody talks about failures, isn't that? Things won't go, I mean, it doesn't matter what you do, things are going to go wrong. But if you learn from it, that's not a failure. And I've always capitalized on that and worked my way up because I wanted to get to where I was going to scale. I would need help, but I needed to make daggone sure that I knew what to do and what not to do. And so I learned trial by fire with my own cash, my own way, and learned all the things not to do on my own dime. So I was very, very confident to go into that next scale because you got to start small and work, get your reps in, like you were saying, and understand these things before you go big. The worst thing you can do, and I see a lot of our competition and finance guys come out of college and they have finance degrees, is that they don't have an operational side. They'll buy a huge park or buy one from me and they just run it into the ground because they don't know how to manage it. Yeah. So, that's that's just the thing. You just have to go through the reps, and you just got to find a way, no matter what. There's always a way,
Yeah.
no matter what you do.
Has there's has there been power in starting and staying in one niche? Because that seems to be where you've played most of your career.
So, yeah. Well, here's the thing, though. So, I grew up in residential, right? I knew I wanted to get in commercial, but when I started out, I wanted to be in multifamily, and then I went into industrial, and then I bought some multifamily, and I bought duplexes in a 20-unit complex, and I did some residential flips. And it wasn't until I tried mobile homes that I thought, oh, okay, this looks a little different. What I liked about mobile homes is that I wasn't financeable, right? So everything I had to do prior, I had to use someone else. I wasn't financeable. But with these homes, I could do it cash and not rely on any kind of finance or bank, and I would own the asset, right? So that's what I liked about it. But I had to go through all those different niches, right, to try them out and see which one I liked, what I didn't like in order to land on what I was really, really good at. And the biggest thing for me was is forecasting. I needed to make sure whichever model I was going to go, that no matter whether the economy was doing well or doing worse, that whatever I chose to go and I'd be happy with, there's room to scale and that the need would always be there and it would appreciate. So I picked mobile home parks because, again, I liked it. The maintenance is easier. I've been all over the coin. I've owned all assets. But what I realized is that affordable housing, demand for affordable housing goes up every single year exponentially, and the supply of affordable housing decreases each year. There's not as much, especially in mobile home parks. So I realized really quickly, hey, there's an asset class that caters to the biggest need in housing in the United States. And it's the most affordable, but most people don't touch it because it's hard to understand. And so I realized there's my niche. And I ended up loving it. And so that was the thing. But I had to try these other ones to figure it out. But once you figure it out, you cut. So once I bought my first park, I sold everything else. All my apartments, all my duplexes, sold everything. Because once you find it, you got to go all in. And a quote that I use a lot is you're either all in or you're not in at all. So you've got to pick one. And when you know it with all your heart and your gut, you go all in. You can't be divisive. Not till way later when you have a lot of assets and liquidity.
Yep. No, I couldn't agree more. And my story, completely different niche, but similar in the sense that we built our portfolio strictly on single family and small multifamily. Me and my business partner, and then, but that's not fun. Like we did it. It served a purpose, and it still does. We still hold most of our portfolio, but eventually we evolved into lending and hard money lending, and then that has evolved into a fund, which it is very intuitive to us. We understand the mechanics of it. We're good at it. We have leaned all in on that the last several years and growing it because we enjoy it. We understand it. We like it. And you talk about mobile home parks. I've never owned a mobile home park, but here in the last year and a half, we've lent on a bunch of them because they're some of our safest loans we have. They're easy to underwrite. We understand them now because we deal with a handful of operators that are, operating in that space. And I couldn't agree with you more. There, once you get over that, and I guess this is true for any asset class, but in mobile home parks, it does seem intimidating to folks that don't understand them because they seem like it's too complex. It's not really. Once you start understanding all the nuances, and obviously
Right.
you've solved the riddle. So
I say too, with all the residential guys listening or thinking about it, it's the same strategy no matter what niche you go into in real estate. Again, I've owned and managed, I've been in every single form you can think of. It's all the same strategy. It's the same financing strategy. It's the same exit, everything. You've got to buy low, sell high. The only thing that's different is the management. Is really vastly different. The seller takebacks are the same on commercial deals as they are in residential. The amortization schedules are the same. They might vary a little bit, but it's the same technique, the same lenders, and it's really the same. So you shouldn't be intimidated to go to a different industry or a larger one. You'll have to learn it, of course, but the strategy is all the same.
yeah, I'm gonna segue now with talking about that, like starting out in it, and I'll just ask you a question kind of related to resources. Let's say there's somebody that is hearing what you're saying and it sparks an interest, and they don't know what the next step is. Um, and there are gurus around every corner that are just waiting for those people to spend their money on their course, but have no accountability, no action taken. You, as an expert and a big player in the space, what would you how would you advise yourself when you had $1,500 in the bank to get started in this space, or anybody there in that same position?
Yeah, just start.
Yeah.
Uh, get in, right? Even if you screw up a little bit, at least get in. You're going to learn so much more with your hands on the job than reading 15 different books.
Yeah.
And then look at your source. That's a big thing I learned. Look at your source, the book, the author, whoever's selling the course, whatever. What have they done? Prove to me that you've actually done what you say you're doing. Because and here's the thing, I've realized a lot of investors, uh, they say they own thousands of pads or whatever, right? They own a small portion of a pool of a fund that owns thousands of pads. They don't own jack squat.
Right.
And you get simply just knowing the lingo. So each type of asset has different words and lingo. And if you don't know the lingo, you're gonna show your cards right away. Like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, right?
And what you're talking about right now is my biggest pet peeve in real estate because I am so I when I tell people they want to know how many units I own or whatever, it's around 100 units, right? But if I presented it, that's how much me and my business partner own, single family, small multifamily. But I'm an investor in a bunch of syndications. I'm a limited partner in a bunch of syndications. And other investors in those syndications publicly say, I own 10,000 units, right? I own 15,000 units across the country. They own one share in several syndications,
Right.
and they're not operating those units, nothing. And that's like me going out and buying a share of Apple stock and saying, I own Apple stock. I own that, right? And a lot of people sell themselves as experts, or whatever you want to call it, in a specific space off of unit count. And I caution everybody starting out, just be careful and make sure you understand what they actually have done. And in your case, you actually have done what you say you've done. You've written the book, literally, and I'll give you a chance now to talk about that book.
Yeah. So yeah, I've got the book. I'm writing another one now that's called Your Money is Dying. It was actually a bestseller for one day on Amazon.
There you go.
And and as well as Australia. I don't know why the heck it happened in Australia, but I'll take it. You know, down under. But yeah, exactly what you're saying. So our competition, we have a fund. So we have a fund that we invest in stabilized mobile home parks. It's cash flowing. We start monthly distributions to our investors within 90 days. And then we also syndicate these heavy value ads. They just take longer to turn around, but they have the big pops, right? So it just depends if you want to take depreciation and stuff, you go over there. But really, our current fund is for stabilized parks, cash flowing, for predictable, recession-proof payments, monthly payments. So it's a really, really safe asset class. But what we have is our competition, these other funds, and what we really call them are fee bandits. All they want to do is get their fees because they all get fees, right? They'll promise these big numbers, and they'll go buy all kind of assets all over. Really, really big assets, huge portfolios, raise tons of money. And these are the guys with MBAs that come from the pristine universities, this and that, work with offices. But what they're doing is, and this happened a lot with multifamily in the past few years, by the way, they'll go and buy everything they can, and they're buying at ridiculous prices that are just unimaginable with low caps that there's no way it can cash flow enough to cover the operational expenses. But what they do is they'll buy everything, get non-recourse debt, or not guarantee it, guarantee the loan, get all their fees up front because that's how they make their living, and then sayonara, see you later. And when it implodes, no big deal. They make another fund with some other different name and say that they've owned thousands of units, but not tell you that everything's crashed and burned behind them. And so you'll have these other funds that will take your cash. They'll never talk to you, and they'll take their fees. And then if it doesn't work out, oh well, sorry, move on to the next one. And so that's why we're different, and that's why it took me so long to come to the marketplace, because I wanted to make daggone sure I knew the asset in and out. I've done all the work. I've been through all of the things not to do, and I learned you don't do them because I did them myself. And these other guys don't have the managerial aspect of it. And the other thing too is that we're not only are we getting great returns, we're working with some amazing investors, but we're also cleaning up entire zip codes, entire communities, and giving people the ability to have the American dream with their own home. And these are the, hardest working people in the country. They're the backbone. They're the janitors, teachers, grocery store clerks, stockers, shippers, you name it, construction guys. They really, really are hardworking, great people. And I don't consider a park as stabilized until it's somewhere I would be comfortable living in with my family. And so we really take that to heart. And the other thing that makes us different, we came from an operational background, not a finance background. So I had to learn all this physically on the job, on hands on site. And fun fact, the first home, Bonnie, my wife, we ever bought that we lived in and we had our son in was a mobile home. It was a double wide. So I could confidently say I lived, eat, and breathe mobile home parks. So we know the tenant base better than anyone else because we've actually been there. So really look at your source. But yeah, there's a lot of guys, and I used to get upset too because I'm like, man, I'm working my butt off, but I only got 1,000 pads. These other guys say they got 4 or 5 or 6. And I realized as I got into the game, going from the smaller operation to a larger institutional, is that a lot of these guys are all smoke and no gas, all smoke and no gas.
Yeah, and I would, my frustration does, I don't care what they want to say and stuff like that, but when they try to convert that into selling courses and taking new people's money, that's where I get frustrated when I see that. And especially I know a lot of these operators, and I know what the truth is, but you get some young hungry person that has their last 15 grand, and they've been advised by a mentor to dump it into a course so they can learn how to do it, and then they do that because they believe what they see on a social media reel. That's where I get a little frustrated with with those folks that just that oversell their experience. You're obviously not doing that. So
Yeah, I would tell you too. Look at their funding, look at their source, look at like Tony Robbins and these other guys and Dave Ramsey, right? Where do they make their money? They make their money on their books and self-help programs, this and that. They don't make their money with that. So the same thing. If you want to know how a fund or an operator is not doing too well, look at how many courses and things he's pushing on sales and promotions, this and that. We haven't done that model. We will in the future because I know it's really needed, especially for people that like me that started out with nothing to do what we do. But we're just not to that point yet. But when you start seeing people selling all kind of stuff and pushing it really hard, that's usually a red flag for me. I don't want to touch it.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. So, Major, we're gonna segue now into some rapid fire questions. A couple of them you've already answered, so I won't
Go ahead.
be redundant with those. But I've already talked about Never Split the Difference. You just talked about
Mhm.
your book, which we're gonna drop the link to that in the show notes. Give me one or two other books that have had a big impact on you.
Yeah, number one would be Unscripted by N.J. DeMarco. For sure. I read that book after I had read the Lonnie Scruggs book, and it really helped me understand how mentally how to move forward, uh, and then how to differentiate yourself and allow yourself to grow and scale. I highly recommend that book. It's an awesome book. It's very real and upfront and blunt. It's not all fluffy with different words and a thesaurus, and it's just real stuff. I highly recommend it.
It's not often now. Early in my life, I was not a reader. I am embarrassed to admit that I probably made it to my early 30s before I ever read an entire book. I just did not like reading. But since
Yeah,
that time, in the 10 years since, I've read a couple hundred books. Probably I can't put books down now. I listen to a lot of books too, but very rarely does somebody give me one that I've never even heard of. And Unscripted is that. So I'm excited to dive into that one.
oh yeah.
So yeah.
It was originally called Fast Lane Millionaire,
Okay.
and but then he updated it to Unscripted.
Okay.
So Unscripted is the current version.
Gotcha. What is a quote that best describes your overall perspective on life?
Yeah, I mean, burn the ships, and then you're all in or you're not in at all. And then another one actually from Tony Robbins that helped me out a long time ago was if you want your life to change, you have to change things in your life. And if you think about it, it's just stating if you want a different outcome or you want to change your current environment or living standard, you're gonna have to change things that you're doing in order to get to that point.
Yeah. What do they say? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. That's,
That's right.
yep, yep,
That's
I love
right.
that. So, what's a belief that you held early in your journey that later turned out to be dangerously wrong?
Um, that your current support system and the people and friends that you have now will be there. They're not. And what's going to happen is as you grow and you're worried about outperforming your friends or what have you. And here's the thing, when I started out, I didn't have any, had nothing. And I had all these friends at the time in college that went off to get really nice jobs. They're taking vacations, they're buying cars, this and that. And I'm living in my parents' house working three jobs.
Yeah.
Or I'm living in a house and my girlfriend at the time, I'm using her credit cards in order to make, mortgage payments and light payments and what have you. And that they're gonna be there and happy for you. When you get successful, a lot of those people will turn their backs on you and not be happy for you. And in fact, you'll start feeling guilty that you're doing so well that, you don't want to tout about it because you're going to make everyone else upset. And so just understand that do it for you and the people really show themselves later. And that as you expand and work your way up, your network will expand and you'll meet even better and greater people you would have never thought before because they're on the same level. And as you go up, it's a pyramid. As you get higher and higher, you start dealing with really cream of the crop, better people that you can really relate with. And so just understand it's a lonely road to get going. But once you get going and you get that network, it really blossoms out into something beautiful you never would have thought.
Love it. If you had to rebuild from scratch tomorrow, what would you not do again and why?
What would I not do? Um, I probably wouldn't go out and party and do all this stupid stuff when I was younger. And I wish I found, yeah, Yeah, I wish I had found mobile home parks earlier,
Yeah.
but I would. You got to be confident, man, and go in. Every meeting I went into, and still to this day, when I walk in, I had a briefcase of blank contracts and listing agreements and leases and what have you, and I take with me everywhere. And on every time I met with a seller or go meet with them in person, I would say, all right, they're signing no matter what. I'm going to sign them, sign. And that's my mentality. You got to have that mentality. So not being confident in yourself and understand, no one knows what they're doing, really. And when you get started out, you're going to feel like that, but it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And so a lot of these things, just like with the clam boat thing, you get them to sign, you make a promise or an offer that you can back up. You may not know how to do it, but you'll find a way. And yeah, just don't be scared of the bigger deals because again, when it's a really good deal, the money will find you.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you, this is an unscripted question I didn't prep you for, but I know you have two young kids, 7 and 9.
Yeah.
And this is a quote that I recently saw that, I mean, when I say recently, in the last few weeks, it just hit me because I have two young kids too. But I'm going to tell you the quote and then I want you to give me your perspective on it. Somebody is learning how to be a human being from watching you. Let that sit with
Mm,
you for a second. And that,
okay.
like, what does that mean to you?
Uh, that's great because I'm a child of Christ, man. In fact, uh, mobile home parks is where I actually found Christ, if you can believe it or not. But yeah, I mean, there's older people. Okay, here's a big thing to learn. All right, it's all coming to me now. I learned this when I had the farm, and this is a whole nother different story. But just because someone's been doing it for a long time doesn't mean they're doing it right. Okay, so understand that, and really, you got to look 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, and start now because you'll be so happy you did. I'm so happy I busted my butt back in my 20s and my 30s to get where I was at now. And so, but yeah, you got to be ethical and happy and proud because you got to look at yourself in the mirror and proud of what you do and make a meaningful impact. So,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I hope they learned something from the podcast today of what I've done.
Yeah, Major, I really appreciate it. I think they certainly will, and I think you've got enough resources out there where if this has piqued anybody's curiosity, you've got a book out there. We're going to put all that in there. You've got you mentioned the fund. There's folks out there that are looking for different ways to diversify and store their money in different asset classes. And you've just given them a very good option, a couple good options there. And I know you're going to send me over a landing page for more information on that fund. So we'll drop that as well. Put all your social media, we'll drop that. And I'm glad. I'm very thankful for my community and Jim Ingersoll and Dealmaker for connecting you and I, because otherwise our paths may not have crossed. So I'm
Definitely.
thankful to get this last hour or so here with you and getting to know you better. So,
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Anytime. And there's a whole lot to unpack, but happy to help anyone if they're interested. Just contact us online, and then yeah, the fund. And that's another way. If anyone is interested in parks, probably the best way to learn is to sit shotgun with somebody that knows what the heck they're doing
yep.
and see it. So with this fund, like what we have, and all of our investors see what we're doing, they can talk to us anytime, and be very, very confident to where if they want to do it on their own in the future, they definitely could.
Yeah, I love it. And I can't end this without asking you this. Anybody that's gonna put one of their favorite quotes as burn the ships, I've got to invite them on my other podcast. So you and I will coordinate offline on that and get that maybe a little bit later this year, get you on that one as well. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'll get you on ours, a Legacy Playbook podcast.
Sweet.
I'll get you on
Sounds
there
good.
too, man.
Yeah, man. Well,
Appreciate it.
Major, I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. Will you be in Richmond for Dealmaker this year?
Yeah, I'll actually be speaking on the second day morning.
Okay, great.
So I'll be doing a presentation on, guess what, mobile home park.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'll officially meet you there, and I look forward to it. So,
All right, sounds good. Thanks,
yeah,
Jason.
have a good one. Thank you.
See ya.
That wraps up this episode of the Dealmaker Catalyst. If you want to keep learning from elite operators and plug into a national community that lives this stuff every day, check out Dealmaker Catalyst. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who's serious about leveling up. And we'll see you on the next Dealmaker Catalyst.